Today's story is titled, She Cooked for a Stranger Who'd Lost His Taste for Life. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain fell steady over New York that gray afternoon, streaking down the windows of a quiet cafe tucked between office towers. The smell of coffee and wet pavement filled the air as Lucy wiped the counter for the third time, her fingers red from the cold. The lunch rush had passed hours ago, leaving her alone with the humming refrigerator and the ache in her chest that came every time the phone buzzed with another unpaid bill reminder. She had just finished cleaning the last table when the door opened and a man stepped inside, tall, impeccably dressed, but somehow hollow. His eyes carried the kind of exhaustion that came not from work but from living too long without meaning. He took a seat by the window, rainwater glistening on his coat. "Can I get you something warm?" Lucy asked, voice soft but steady. The man looked up slowly, his gaze unfocused. "I cannot taste much these days," he said quietly. "But soup would be fine." Something in his tone, flat, polite, defeated, made Lucy pause. She brought him a bowl anyway, chicken broth with lemon and ginger, her mother's old comfort recipe. Steam curled between them as she placed it down. "It helps when the weather's like this," she murmured. He gave a faint smile but did not move his spoon. When he finally lifted it, the gesture looked more like memory than appetite. He tasted, blinked once, then set the spoon down. "Still nothing," he said, more to himself than to her. Lucy hesitated, then whispered, "Sometimes it takes more than flavor to wake the senses." The man looked at her, really looked, for the first time. For a fleeting second, his eyes softened, but he said nothing. She turned away, pretending to tidy the counter, unaware that his phone on the table was recording a news alert flashing across the screen. Aiden Wolfe, CEO of Wolfe Bioworks, rumored to be in seclusion after accident. He slipped the phone face down, hiding his name like a wound. Lucy never noticed. She only saw a lonely stranger too proud to ask for help. When he left, he folded a $50 bill under the bowl and disappeared into the rain without a word. She found the note later, hands trembling not because of the money, but because on the napkin beneath it, in a firm, elegant hand, he had written, "Thank you for cooking something that still feels alive." Lucy stared at the words, not knowing they were the beginning of a story that would change both of their lives forever. The next morning, Lucy woke to the sound of rain again, softer this time, almost gentle against her apartment window. The city outside was gray but alive. She tied her apron, packed a small lunch for her grandmother, and left early for her shift at the catering kitchen. The image of the man from yesterday lingered in her mind, the way he looked at the bowl, as if searching for something beyond taste. She tried to shake it off, telling herself he was just another customer passing through a lonely afternoon. By noon, the kitchen was a chaos of clattering pans and boiling pots. Lucy kept her head down, her hands steady as she chopped onions. Then her manager, a tired woman named Ruth, called her over. "Lucy, there is a call for you. Some big company said it is urgent." Lucy frowned, wiping her hands before picking up the phone. A calm male voice spoke. "Miss Lewis? My name is Daniel Hart. I work for Mr. Aiden Wolfe. He would like to meet you regarding a private culinary position." Lucy froze, nearly dropping the receiver. "I think there has been a mistake," she said. "I do not know anyone named Mr. Wolfe." The man's tone remained professional. "He asked specifically for the woman who cooked the soup yesterday afternoon. He said it reminded him of living." Lucy hesitated. Where is this meeting?" "The Wolfe Tower. Top floor. 5 o'clock." The call ended before she could refuse. All afternoon, Lucy's heart raced. The Wolf Tower was one of the tallest buildings in the city, the kind you only saw on postcards. She left work early, her hands trembling as she rode the elevator that whispered all the way to the 72nd floor. When the doors opened, she stepped into silence. The walls were glass, revealing clouds drifting beneath her feet. Aiden stood by the window, his reflection sharp against the skyline. He turned slowly, the faintest smile touching his lips. "You came." Lucy nodded, unsure what to say. "I am sorry if this is strange," he continued, "but I have a problem only you might solve." He gestured toward a sleek folder on the table. Inside, neat pages outlined a contract. "I need a personal chef. For 2 months. You would live here, prepare my meals, and attend public events as my wife." Lucy's breath caught. "Your wife?" "It is for the company's image," he explained. "Since my accident, investors have been restless. They think I am broken. They think Wolfe Bioworks has lost its heart. I need stability, someone who looks like hope." She stared at him, half in disbelief, half in pity. "Why me?" Aiden's voice softened. "Because when I ate your soup, for the first time in months, I felt something." Silence filled the room, thick as steam. Lucy closed the folder, shaking her head. "I am not an actress. I just cook." "That is exactly why it has to be you," he said. "No cameras, no lies, just the illusion of normal life. I will pay you well enough to fix whatever is broken." He paused, watching her eyes widen. "You can walk away right now, but if you stay, everything changes." Lucy's fingers brushed the edge of the folder. Her grandmother's medicine bills flashed through her mind, the eviction notice on her door, the dream of reopening her mother's small diner. She took a long breath. 2 months, she whispered. "No more." Aiden's gaze softened with something like relief. He extended his hand. 2 months, he echoed. The moment their hands touched, thunder rolled outside, echoing across the glass walls. Neither of them knew that the contract they had just sealed would become the recipe that changed their lives forever. Lucy moved into the penthouse 2 days later, still wondering if she had lost her mind. The place was like a museum, cold marble floors, walls of glass, and silence thick enough to hear her own heartbeat. Aiden had arranged everything: a wardrobe, a private suite, even a phone she was required to carry. There was also a printed schedule that began each morning at 7 with breakfast and ended at 9 with dinner together, no exceptions. The first rule in the contract was clear. They would act married in public, but in private they would remain strangers. Their first morning together felt like walking on ice. Lucy wore a simple dress and tried not to trip over her nerves. She cooked an omelette with herbs and toast just the way she liked it, wondering if he would even eat. When she placed the plate on the table, Aiden looked at it carefully, almost as if inspecting a chemical formula. "You do not need to test it," she said softly, setting down the fork. "It is just breakfast, not a science experiment." He blinked, surprised, then almost smiled. "Habit," he admitted. "I used to control everything in this house, even the air temperature. Now I cannot even taste my own food." Lucy hesitated. "Then stop trying to taste. Just eat." He obeyed quietly, and for the first time, finished the entire plate. For a moment, something human flickered across his face, something alive. Over the next week, Lucy learned that Aiden Wolfe lived in routines the way others lived in dreams. He worked from dawn until nightfall, barely speaking unless necessary. When she cooked, he would sit at the counter, reading reports while she stirred soup or sliced vegetables. One evening, she decided to break the silence. "You know," she said, "my mother used to say food is memory. Maybe your body remembers even when your tongue does not." Aiden looked up, his gaze unreadable. "You believe that?" "I have to," Lucy replied. "Otherwise, what would be the point of cooking?" Something in her sincerity made him pause. "Then cook something that remembers joy," he said quietly. The next morning, she did. She made cinnamon French toast, the same way her mother used to on Sunday mornings. The smell filled the kitchen, warm and sweet. Aiden walked in, stopped, and inhaled deeply. "That smells like Christmas," he said, a trace of emotion in his voice. Lucy turned, surprised. "You can smell it?" He nodded slightly, his expression uncertain, almost hopeful. She smiled. "Then maybe you are healing." Later that evening, his assistant Daniel stopped by to deliver some papers. He glanced at Lucy, curious, then at Aiden. "The board wants confirmation of your attendance at the charity gala, sir," he said. Aiden sighed. "Tell them yes. And make sure Mrs. Wolfe has a dress suitable for the event." Lucy almost choked. "Mrs. Wolfe?" "It is part of the contract," Aiden reminded her calmly. "Appearances matter." That night, Lucy stood before the mirror in the gown Daniel had delivered, a deep blue silk that shimmered under the lights. She hardly recognized herself. When Aiden appeared at the door, wearing a tailored black suit, he froze for half a second. "You look," he began, then caught himself. "Ready." At the gala, flashes from cameras lit the marble hall. People turned to stare at him, the billionaire who had disappeared, and her, the woman no one knew. Lucy clung to his arm, heart pounding, whispering, "I do not belong here." "Neither do I," Aiden murmured back. For the first time, they smiled at the same time. Under the chandeliers, surrounded by strangers and whispers, the fake marriage began to feel like something dangerously real. And neither of them was ready for what that would mean. The charity gala was a storm of lights, perfume, and voices layered with money and vanity. Aiden walked beside Lucy with the calm precision of a man used to being watched, but beneath his composure she could sense the tension in his jaw. They were halfway across the ballroom when a woman in a red dress approached, her smile sharp as glass. "Aiden Wolfe," she said, holding out a hand. "It has been too long." Aiden's voice was polite but cold. "Good evening, Claire." Lucy realized this must be his ex-fiancée, the one he had never spoken about. Claire's gaze swept over Lucy, evaluating, before she offered a faint laugh. "So this is your new project. I heard you were experimenting again." The words hit like a slap. Lucy forced a polite smile, whispering, "Excuse me," and stepped away before her voice could betray her. She found refuge near the buffet table, staring at the reflection of the chandeliers in her glass of water. Moments later, Aiden appeared beside her. "You handled that with grace," he said quietly. "I handled it with restraint," she replied. "There is a difference." He studied her, something like guilt in his eyes. "Claire does not matter anymore." "Maybe not to you," Lucy said, "but the world is watching. They think I am just another distraction." She set the glass down. "I do not belong here." "You belong wherever you decide to stand," he said softly. His words hung between them, fragile and honest. For a heartbeat, the music faded, the crowd blurred, and it was just them. Then the lights dimmed and the host called Aiden to the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man who brought Wolfe Bioworks back to life, Mr. Aiden Wolfe, and his wife." The word wife echoed through the hall. Lucy froze as applause thundered. Aiden extended his hand toward her, his eyes asking silently. She swallowed her fear and took it. Under the glare of the spotlight, he began to speak. "A year ago, I lost my sense of taste, and with it, my sense of life. But someone reminded me that healing does not begin in the body. It begins here." He touched his chest. The audience was silent. Sometimes, the cure you need does not come in medicine or science. It comes in kindness, in warmth, in a bowl of soup shared by a stranger. Cameras flashed. Lucy felt her heart twist. Every word was true, but every word was also part of the illusion they had agreed to maintain. When the speech ended, he led her from the stage. They smiled for the crowd, but when they stepped into the empty corridor behind the ballroom, the silence was deafening. "That was beautiful," Lucy said softly. "You make a convincing husband." He turned toward her, eyes dark. And you make it hard to remember this is not real. The air between them shifted. For a moment, neither moved. Then a flash of lightning illuminated the window, and they both exhaled at once, as if breaking a spell. Later that night, back at the penthouse, Lucy removed the diamond earrings the stylist had lent her. She placed them carefully on the vanity and looked at her reflection, half chef, half socialite, and wholly confused. Behind her, Aiden appeared in the doorway, his tie undone, his expression unreadable. "You did well tonight," he said quietly. "So did you," she replied. "You almost looked alive up there." Aiden gave a faint smile. "Maybe I was." They stood in silence for a long time, the city glittering below. When Lucy finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Good night, Mr. Wolfe." "Good night, Mrs. Wolfe," he answered, but his tone carried something deeper, something neither of them dared to name. The days after the gala passed like a quiet echo. The world saw a perfect couple smiling in glossy magazines, but inside the penthouse there was only the sound of cooking, of footsteps, of silence stretching between them like glass. Yet something had changed. Aiden no longer watched from a distance when Lucy cooked. He began asking questions about flavors, about memories, about her mother's recipes. Sometimes he would sit at the counter with a cup of tea, pretending to read while actually watching her move. One evening, she placed a bowl of stew in front of him. "Try this one," she said. "It is called joy soup." He raised an eyebrow. "Joy soup?" "It is a silly name," she admitted, smiling, "but my mother believed every meal could carry emotion. This one is for days when you forget what warmth feels like." He took a spoonful, hesitated, and then his expression changed just slightly, but enough. "I can taste the salt," he whispered, almost in disbelief. Lucy's eyes lit up. "That is your first taste coming back." For the first time, he laughed, a sound low and genuine. "You are dangerous, Mrs. Wolfe," he said. "You make me believe in things again." The line between performance and reality began to blur. They started sharing breakfasts on the balcony, talking about trivial things: the weather, the view, the smell of rain. Lucy learned that Aiden had been an orphan, that his drive came from fear of losing control. He learned that Lucy's mother had died when she was 15 and that cooking was her only inheritance. "Food kept me alive," she said softly one night, "but kindness brought me back." Aiden looked at her for a long moment. "You do not realize it, but you are saving me too." That confession lingered in the air. A week later, the board meeting loomed. Daniel warned Aiden that his cousin Evan was gathering support to push him out, claiming he was unfit to lead due to his condition. "He is using the accident," Daniel said, "and this marriage, this arrangement question your credibility." Aiden nodded grimly. "Then we give them a show they cannot forget." The day of the meeting arrived. Lucy accompanied him to the Wolfe Tower conference room, wearing a simple cream dress and a calm face, though her hands shook. The board members sat around a long table, all eyes sharp and calculating. Evan smirked. "You have brought your wife. How charming." Aiden ignored him. When the meeting began, Evan presented graphs and reports, ending with a smirk. "Our investors are worried, Aiden. They think you are unstable. They think this domestic charade is proof of it." The room buzzed with whispers. Aiden rose slowly. "You are right about one thing," he said evenly. "I did lose control. I lost my sense of taste, my sense of purpose. But someone reminded me that leadership is not about control. It is about trust." He looked at Lucy. "And I trust her." The silence that followed was electric. For a moment, even Evan faltered. Afterward, in the elevator, Lucy exhaled. "You did not have to do that." "Yes, I did," Aiden said softly. "Because for once, I wanted to speak the truth." That night, the rain returned, tapping against the glass walls of the penthouse. Lucy stood by the window, thinking about the contract's remaining weeks. She felt something she had not expected: fear, not of losing the job, but of losing him. Aiden approached, standing beside her. "Do you ever think about what happens when this ends?" he asked quietly. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Every day." He reached out as if to touch her hand, then stopped himself. "Good night, Lucy." She wanted to say his name, to tell him that the lines they had drawn no longer made sense, but the words caught in her throat. As he walked away, she realized the strangest truth of all. Somewhere between lies and longing, she had fallen in love with a man who could not taste his own food but had somehow learned to taste life again. The next morning, sunlight crept through the tall glass windows, spilling gold over the kitchen counters. Lucy was already awake, stirring coffee, trying to calm the storm inside her chest. She knew the contract was nearing its end, yet every day made it harder to pretend she was ready to leave. Aiden entered quietly, no suit jacket today, just a simple shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked less like a CEO and more like a man trying to remember what peace felt like. "You are up early," he said. "Old habit," she replied with a small smile. He poured himself coffee but did not drink it, watching her instead. "Lucy," he said slowly, "I need to ask you something personal. If you could start over, completely free, what would you do?" She paused, the spoon in her hand trembling slightly. "I would reopen my mother's diner." It was called Blue Bowl. Small, warm, full of laughter. People came not because the food was perfect but because they felt at home. Aiden nodded, thoughtful. "You miss her, do you not?" "Every day," she said. She believed food could heal broken things. He smiled faintly. Maybe she was right. Later that day, Lucy visited her grandmother in the small care home across town. The old woman, frail but bright-eyed, smiled when Lucy entered. "You look different," she said, teasing. "You have that glow women get when they are trying not to fall in love." Lucy laughed softly. "He is not mine, Grandma. It is all pretend." Her grandmother reached for her hand. "Sometimes pretend is how truth sneaks in." Lucy left with her heart heavier than before. That evening, she returned to find Aiden in the kitchen, sleeves still rolled up, attempting to cook. The counter was a battlefield of spilled flour and half-burned bread. She burst out laughing. "You are a disaster," she said. "I was trying to make something simple," he admitted sheepishly. "Cinnamon toast. I thought maybe I could remember how it used to taste." She took the spatula from him, shaking her head. "Let me." Together they remade it, side by side, the silence between them softer than before. When the toast was ready, she handed him a piece. He bit into it carefully, eyes closing. "It tastes like home," he whispered. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to slow. For a moment, there was no contract, no company, no line between duty and desire. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Lucy," he murmured, "what if we stop pretending?" Her heart pounded. "Aiden, we cannot." "Why not?" he interrupted gently. "Everything real I have felt in the last months has been with you." She stepped back, shaking her head. "This is not how stories like ours end." His voice was quiet but firm. "Then let us write a different one." Before she could answer, Daniel entered abruptly, his face tense. "Aiden, you need to see this." He handed over a tablet. Headlines filled the screen: Wolfe's fake marriage exposed, PR stunt or scandal. Lucy froze as her own photo appeared beneath the headline, taken at the gala. The color drained from Aiden's face. "Who leaked this?" Daniel hesitated. "We traced it back to Evan." Aiden's jaw tightened. "He is trying to destroy us." Lucy swallowed hard. "Not us," she said quietly. "You." "I was just convenient." Aiden turned to her. "Do not say that." "It is true," she whispered, tears welling. "You needed a story to look whole again, and I needed money to survive. But somewhere along the way, I forgot which parts were real." She removed the thin silver ring that had come with the contract and placed it on the counter. "Thank you for letting me believe, even for a while." Aiden reached out, but she was already walking away. The elevator doors closed between them, leaving him alone in the echo of his own choices. Outside, the city lights flickered like dying stars, and for the first time in years, Aiden Wolfe felt the weight of emptiness return, sharper than ever, tasting not of loss but of regret. Aiden spent the next few days buried in silence, surrounded by the noise of a company on fire. Reporters camped outside Wolfe Tower, demanding answers about the fake wife story. Investors were panicking, and the board demanded his resignation. But Aiden's thoughts were nowhere near the headlines they were with Lucy. Her absence filled every corner of the penthouse, the empty chair at breakfast, the untouched kitchen counter, the echo of laughter that had once softened the place. He tried to call, but her phone was disconnected. Daniel entered his office one morning, dark circles under his eyes. "Evan is pressing for an emergency vote to remove you. He claims you staged the marriage for sympathy and manipulated the media." Aiden looked out the window, his voice steady but cold. "Then we fight back with the truth." That afternoon, he went to Lucy's old apartment, but the landlord told him she had moved out 2 days ago, leaving only a small box labeled recipes. Inside were her handwritten notes, pages smudged with sauce and thyme. Between them lay a photo of her and her mother, standing in front of a sign that read Blue Bowl Diner. On the back, she had written, "For someone who forgot what warmth tastes like." Aiden's chest tightened. He realized that what he had mistaken for a performance had been her real self all along, honest, raw, and unguarded. That evening, as the rain returned, he stood in the kitchen and tried to cook her joy soup. It did not taste the same. It was missing her laugh, her touch, the spark that made the simplest meal feel like salvation. The next morning, he faced the board. The room buzzed with tension. Evan smirked from across the table, confident in his victory. "You brought shame to this company," Evan said. "You are finished." Aiden rose slowly. "You are wrong," he replied. "The only shame here is forgetting why this company exists to create life, not destroy it." He turned on the projector, revealing a document. "This is proof that Evan has been funneling money from our charity fund into private accounts." Gasps filled the room. Evan's face drained of color. Security moved in as the board erupted. By the end of the day, Evan was removed, and Aiden was reinstated as CEO. But the victory felt hollow. That night, alone in the penthouse, Aiden poured himself a glass of wine he still could not taste. He stared out at the city lights and whispered, "You were right, Lucy. Healing begins in kindness." For the first time, he realized that all the power, all the wealth, meant nothing if there was no one to share it with. He picked up the phone and called Daniel. "Find her," he said. "Whatever it takes." As the call ended, thunder rolled in the distance. Somewhere across the city, Lucy was working late in a small community kitchen, unaware that the man she had left behind was finally ready to fight not for reputation, but for love. Lucy had started over quietly, renting a small space on the corner of Maple and 9th where the smell of soup and bread filled the air again. The sign above the door read Blue Bowl, hand-painted and imperfect, just like her mother's had been. Every evening she served meals to anyone who walked in, office workers, construction crews, even a few strangers who simply needed warmth. She smiled, but inside she carried a quiet ache. She missed him, though she would never admit it aloud. One night, as she was locking up, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, startled, and there he was, Aiden, standing in the glow of the streetlight, rain dripping from his hair. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were alive in a way she had never seen before. "You found me," she said softly. "It took longer than I wanted," he replied, stepping closer. "Daniel told me about this place. It suits you." "It is all I have ever wanted," she said. "To cook, to make people feel something." He nodded slowly. "You did that for me, Lucy. You brought me back to life." She shook her head, trying to keep her composure. "You do not owe me anything." "You are wrong," he said. I owe you everything. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, worn notebook. You left this behind. Her breath caught when she saw her mother's recipe book. You kept it? I read every page, he said. Every note about flavor and kindness. I even tried to cook your joy soup, but it never tasted right. It was missing you. Lucy's eyes filled with tears. Aiden, he took her hand, pressing the recipe book into her palm. I came to ask for forgiveness and for a chance to make things right. She stared at him, torn between anger and the love she had tried to bury. You think an apology fixes everything? No, he said quietly. But maybe dinner will. The next day, she arrived at the same penthouse she had once fled, uncertain why she had agreed to come. The place looked different now, warmer, alive. The kitchen lights glowed softly, and the smell of soup filled the air. Aiden stood by the stove, wearing an apron and a nervous smile. I might have burned the first batch, he admitted, but I think I got this one right. She watched him stir, a laugh escaping before she could stop it. You actually cooked? I learned from the best, he said. When he served the soup, she took a sip and froze. It tasted exactly like her mother's ginger, lemon, and something else she could not name. You remembered the 321 rule, she whispered. 3 flavors, 2 textures, 1 memory. You taught me that, he said. It is how I built my life again. She looked up at him, the truth breaking through her defenses. You did not need me to save you, Aiden. You just needed to believe you could heal. Maybe, he said, eyes steady on hers. But I still want to spend the rest of my life thanking the woman who reminded me how. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle, and the city lights shimmered like promises waiting to be kept. Lucy realized that somewhere between pain and forgiveness, love had quietly returned. A year later, Blue Bowl was no longer just a small diner on the corner. It had become a foundation, a place where young chefs learned not only recipes but compassion. Lucy stood behind the counter one bright morning, the sunlight spilling across the tables, the scent of lemon and ginger filling the air. Aiden was there too, no longer the haunted man she had met in the rain. He wore a rolled-up shirt and an easy smile, greeting every customer like an old friend. The walls were lined with photos from their journey: the first gala, the first soup, the reopening of Blue Bowl. Above the entrance hung a brass plaque engraved with the words, "For someone who forgot what warmth tastes like." It was the same line Lucy had once written on her recipe note, and now it had become their mission. That evening, after the last customer left, Lucy turned the sign to "Closed" and wiped her hands on her apron. Aiden was waiting at one of the tables, a single bowl of joy soup in front of him, steam curling upward like memory. You still make this better than I ever could, he said. That is because you still use too much salt, she teased, sitting down across from him. He laughed, and for a moment the world felt perfectly simple. Then he reached into his pocket and placed something small and silver on the table. It was a spoon, engraved with the words, "Taste of Home." I kept thinking, he said quietly, about how everything we built started from one bowl of soup. You gave me back my life, Lucy. Let me spend the rest of it giving you mine. Her breath caught as he slid the spoon across the table, the handle catching the light like a promise. Are you proposing with a spoon? She whispered, tears glinting in her eyes. It seemed fitting, he replied, smiling. Rings are symbols of forever. But spoons are for sharing. She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. You are impossible. Then you should say yes, before I change my mind, he said softly. She reached across the table, taking his hand. Yes, she whispered. The cafe lights dimmed, leaving only the golden glow from the kitchen and the rhythm of rain outside. Later that night, as they stood together locking up, Aiden pulled her close and kissed her forehead. You know, he murmured, I can taste everything now. Everything? She asked, smiling. Everything that matters, he said. The city hummed beyond the windows, alive and endless. They had started as a contract written in desperation, a story meant to deceive. But what grew between them was something no paper could define. It was flavor, it was truth, it was love slowly simmered, perfectly real. And as they turned off the last light, Aiden whispered, "Home is not a place, it is a person." Lucy smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "Then I am home," she said. And for the first time, he truly believed her.